Hi, my name is Sebastian Baltes. Welcome to my XE talk about code duplication on Stack Overflow. First of all, I'd like to thank my co-author Christoph Dreude before I want to motivate why we need yet another study about Stack Overflow. Interestingly, there's one aspect that previous research largely ignored. That is looking at code duplication on Stack Overflow from a community perspective. I'd like to introduce two scenarios here. The first is that a user might use code clones to increase their reputation. So they have a somehow successful snippet that they use in a certain answer, and then they start copying and pasting that snippets to all threads where it might fit without referencing the original answer on Stack Overflow. And they would do this to accumulate views and upvotes and in the end reputation. And this is not just a hypothetical scenario, it actually happens on Stack Overflow. We found multiple instances of this. For example, this code snippet here, first usage on Stack Overflow is in September 2016, and since then there have been 31 exact copies of that snippet in different answers without any references between those answers. And it's almost exclusively the same user posting those snippets. Now imagine that this snippet contains a bug and the user has to update all the 31 copies, and it's very likely that some mistakes will happen in this process. For example, that they just forget about certain copies. The second scenario is about maintaining code copied from external sources into Stack Overflow. So for example, a user might decide to copy a code snippet from some external documentation resource into their post to make the post more attractive for others to upvote, to maybe reuse the code, and in the end, again, to make the answer more upvotable and thus increasing their own reputation. And the alternative here would be to just reference an external source, summarize what the source is about, and then reference it as it's recommended in Stack Overflow's guidelines. And also, this is not just a hypothetical scenario, it actually happens quite frequently. For example, from the Android developer documentation, users copy and paste content from there. And on the one hand, you have potential licensing issues when this happens. For example, Android uses a Creative Commons license for their content. You have to attribute the origin. And also what happens when the authoritative source gets updated. When Android developer documentation gets updated, the fixes are not automatically propagated to all instances on Stack Overflow, of course. And there are also issues when you try to address those scenarios. For example, authors can reject edits. So if you propose to add a link, for example, to the external source or to a copy within Stack Overflow, the original author might reject this edit. And also Stack Overflow's rate limiting prevented us, for example, from doing bulk edits, from adding links to a bunch of posts at the same time. They would most likely get reverted overnight. What we did is, first of all, community involvement. We created a post on Stack Overflow Meta about those issues, outlined the two scenarios there to get feedback from the community, and we also built a first very basic tool to look at code clones within Stack Overflow, to look at all copies, but also the external sources that are present. If you don't have access to the XE proceedings yet, you'll find a preprint on my website. Thank you very much.